In this video, we're going to be looking at the characteristics of a quadratic function in standard form. And then we're going to find the axis of symmetry and the vertex of quadratic functions. So here we see that when we're graphing f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, that this is standard form. Now, the graph is going to open up when a is greater than 0, meaning when a is positive, and the graph is going to open down when a is less than 0, so when it's negative. Now, the y-intercept is going to be the c value. Okay, the y-intercept is the c value. And the x-coordinate of the vertex is negative b over 2a. So really quick, we're seeing that this point right here, this 0, comma c, this is our x-intercept. Now our vertex, which is either at the lowest point or the highest point of our graph, meaning the minimum or the maximum, is what we're talking about here. So the x-coordinate of that point can be calculated by taking negative b divided by 2a. Now the axis of symmetry, which is sometimes referred to as the AOS, can be found by finding x equals negative b over 2a. Notice that that's the same equation that you would use for finding the x-coordinate of the vertex. Our axis of symmetry is this vertical line, basically, that our graph is symmetrical. So if this has a distance of 5, then so does this. So let's do a couple examples here where we're going to find the axis of symmetry and the vertex for each of these equations. So the first thing we want to do is we want to find our a value, our b value, and our c value. So here we see that we have an a value of 2, we have a b value of negative 8, and we have a c value of negative 1. Because our axis of symmetry equation, remember the AOS, is the same as our x variable of our vertex, we should do that first. So here we have x equals negative b over 2 times a. So if we plug that in, we're going to get x equals a negative 8 divided by 2 times 2, which means that that's going to give us a value of positive 8 over 4. So we're saying that x is 2. Our axis of symmetry is 2. So as far as our vertex is concerned, because we'll need an x and a y, we have a 2 for our vertex. Now, in order to finish finding our y value, we simply need to plug back in our x value into our equation. So we're going to have 2 times x squared minus 8 times x minus 1. And we're going to plug in the number 2. And then we're going to use our calculator to calculate that value. So when we do that and we plug that into our calculator, we're going to get a value of negative 9. And so we're going to see that we have a vertex of negative 9. So here we've found our vertex, and here we have our axis of symmetry. Let's try another example. Here we have f of x equals 3x squared minus 2x. So we want to find our a value, our b value, and our c value. So we have an a value of 3, a b value of negative 2, and because there isn't a value back here, that tells us that we're going to have a value of c of 0, because there's no constant number. From here, we're now ready to find our axis of symmetry, which x equals negative b over 2a, negative b over 2 times a. So we're going to plug that in. So we'll plug in our negative 2 and our 3, which is going to give us a value of 2 over 6, or 1/3. So we have an AOS of 1/3. So now we've got, for our vertex, we already have half of our vertex found because of the 1/3. So now we're going to plug this into our calculator, where we're going to have 3 times x squared minus 2 times x. And we're not really worried that we're having to plug in a fraction because we're going to use our calculator to help us solve this. So when we take this and we plug this into our calculator, that's going to give us a value of 1/3, of negative 1/3. So negative 1/3. So we'll plug that in, negative 1/3. And now we've found our vertex. Let's go ahead and let's look at 2 more. I want you to do letter C and letter D on your own. We'll start with letter C. So go ahead and do letter C. So push pause and do letter C, and then when you're done, push play, and let's see if you were right. You should have gotten an axis of symmetry of negative 3 and a vertex of negative 3, negative 4. If you got that wrong, look at the work and see where you might have made a mistake. Now let's try letter D. So f of x equals negative 1/2 x squared plus 7x minus 4. So I want you to try this one on your own as well. So go ahead and push pause, and then when you're done, push play, and let's see if you're right. Now letter D was a little trickier. Here we have an axis of symmetry of 7 and a vertex of 7, 41 over 2, which is about 20.5. Now we're going to leave it as a 41 over 2 because we were given a fraction here in the beginning. Now if I had to graph this, I would definitely want to look at it as the 20.5 to make it easier to graph that.